Hello and welcome back, and in this video we're going to be talking about transitions in SwiftUI. Transition is a visual effect that can be applied to a view or a view hierarchy when it appears, disappears, or changes. Transitions provide animation and visual clues that enhances the user interface and improves the overall user experience. Now, with the release of iOS 17 and SwiftUI 5, developers now have the ability to create custom transitions in SwiftUI. It offers a greater flexibility and control over the various stages of transitions, and this functionality is achieved through the introduction of new protocol called transition. Now, before we create our own custom transition using the new protocol, let's go ahead and create a view and try out some of the existing SwiftUI provided transitions. Okay, so we're going to get started with a state property, which is going to help us control this transition. And then we're going to create the body. So we're going to have a VStack. Inside this VStack, we're going to first create a spacer to give it a space and at the top, and then we're going to have an if block. And if the show detail is true, then we want to show some text. Here we're going to apply a transition, and we're going to apply a transition where the text view is going to move from the top edge. Okay, let's go ahead and use another text view. So I'm going to copy this, paste it, and then change this text view's string and say learn iOS development. And this time we're gonna basically apply a transition called slide. So this is gonna slide this text view. Okay, let's go ahead and create a third one. And this one is going to talk about all the areas that devtechie.com has the video courses on. Video courses and books. And this time we are going to apply yet another transition called scale. Okay, so these are our transitions, and what we're going to do is we're going to put another spacer here, and right underneath this spacer we're going to put a button. This button is basically going to trigger the transition. Okay, so we're going to say no more about devtechie.com. I'm sure you all already know about devtechie.com, so if you don't, it's a good time to go ahead and get started by visiting the devtechie.com and check out our awesome offerings. Let's go ahead and reload the previews, and what we should get basically a view that has a button in it but nothing else. So it's basically just gonna show a button, and we're gonna see how our transitions actually play out, the standard transitions. Okay, so we're gonna click on know more about devtechie and notice how our transitions basically appear. Okay, now until now the option for making view appear and disappear on the screen with the default transition has been limited. However, with the release of iOS 17, a new struct called transition has been introduced, offering access to various transition phases, and this grants developers a better control over the presentation and hiding of the views, allowing for more customization. Now, to develop a new transition, our struct must adhere to the transition protocol, which mandates the implementation of a single required function called body. Now, this function grants us access to both the content on which the transition will be applied and the phase of the transition. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new class or new struct here, and we're going to call this rotate present transition. we're going to make sure that this actually conforms to the transition protocol. This is the new protocol that has been introduced, and we want to make sure that we actually provide the implementation for the body function. Now, the transition phase basically includes a Boolean property called isIdentity. Now, this property determines whether the transition should maintain an identity effect, meaning it won't alter the view's appearance, or it should actually apply some sort of transition. Well, we will utilize this property to set the opacity for the view. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to simply take our existing content that we've been passed in here, and we're going to apply opacity on this, and we're going to say if the phase is identity, then opacity can be full, otherwise it's basically completely hidden. Okay, so let's use this newly created transition inside our view. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go up, and in the first transition where we are actually applying the move from the edge top, we're going to use our new rotate present transition. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this out, and notice how our view appears and disappears. Now, in addition to the identity property, the transition phase has other properties that can access and determine the current phases of transition view. Now, continuing with our example, we will extend the transition phase by introducing a new property called rotation. Now, this property will provide a varying rotation angle depending upon the current transition phase of the view. Okay, so let's go ahead and create an extension first over the transition phase. And here we are going to basically create a new property. We're going to create a file private property called rotation, which is going to be of type angle. And we're going to apply a switch statement on self. We're going to have will appear, which is going to return degree 180. Identity, which is another phase, we're going to return 0 degree angle. And for the disappear, we are going to return degree and negative 180 degrees. Okay, now let's include this newly introduced phase value inside our custom transition. So we are going to apply a rotation effect, and we're going to say rotation effect is going to depend upon the phase's rotation value. Okay, now we are ready to apply our newly introduced transition. So let's go ahead and try this. Notice how our view rotates when it appears and rotates again when it disappears. Now, this transition phase gives us access to the phase value, which can be utilized to modify effects that are applied differently based on the specific phases. We can use this value as the multiplier to adjust the impact of these effects accordingly. Let's make devtechie.com colorful using the hue rotation modifier. So we are going to apply hue rotation, and we're going to pass the angle degree, and the degree value is going to be based on the phase dot value, and phase dot value gives us access to the value currently it's transitioning into the phase for, and we're going to multiply this with 360. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to add a foreground style to our devtechie.com text view. Okay, so now we are ready let's go ahead and also set the font as large title. Okay, so now we are ready to play our animation, and as you can see, as our view appears and disappears, it goes through many different color changes due to the hue rotation angle that we have applied. Now, when we understand the basics of this new transition protocol and how to use it, we are now ready to create a complex view. For our next example, we will render devtechie.com's courses in a list and add a custom transition to show the detailed information about the course. Let's start with the data model and some sample courses. I'm going to copy and paste so you don't have to see me type, and we can actually quickly talk about what we are doing here. So we have devtechie courses as a struct, which is our model file. It conforms to the identifiable protocol, provides a unique ID for itself. It has three other properties: title, lessons, and category. And in the extension, we are providing basically a sample value, which essentially shows us what are the different values that we can use for. So these are just sample data. All right, there are much more than this on devtechie.com, so I would highly encourage you to go and check it out. Now let's create a custom transition for this for the course card, which we're going to create and flip it in 3D space. Okay, so we're going to create a new custom transition. So we're going to say struct custom transition. Once again, we're going to conform to the transition protocol. We're going to give it a phase angle, and phase angle is going to be basically a tuple of double and double type. Let's go ahead and define the body property or body function. And here we're going to take our content and apply the opacity first. If the phase is not equal to identity, then we don't want to display anything. Otherwise, we want to fully display our content. And then then comes the part where we're going to apply the rotation. So let's go ahead and apply the rotation effect, and we can apply rotation 3D effect. Okay. Now for the rotation 3D effect, we're going to first apply the degrees. And this degrees is going to have phase, is going to depend upon phase.value. We're going to multiply this with, and we're going to check if the phase is equal to will appear. In that case, the phase angle dot zeroth, basically the first value in the tuple, should be returned. Otherwise, phase angles dot 1, which is the second tuple, should be returned. Okay, now for the angle, we're going to apply this transition in the x-axis, and we also want to provide an anchor value, and we're going to say it's going to be, this animation is going to be anchored at the top. Now I'm going to select this portion of the code and press Command M to format it better. Okay, now we are ready, and we are ready to basically create our custom views, which will show each course in a card UI, and the card will have a title and the detail view for the section. So let's go ahead and create a new struct, custom transition title, and this is going to be a view, and this view is going to expect a devtechie course as the parameter, show details as another Boolean parameter, and the back color. Now we're going to create the body. Inside the body, we're going to have a VStack. And this VStack is going to have the text devtechie course.title. Now let's set the font for this guy as title.bold. Let's add some padding. Let's give it a frame with height of 200 points and frame with max width as infinity, so it takes over the entire width. Now next, we're gonna basically have a background, and this background is going to be on the background color dot gradient. We're going to create this inside an uneven rounded box, and we're going to give it basically a top leading and top trailing, bottom leading and bottom trailing values. Okay, so top leading radius is going to be 20 points. Bottom leading radius is going to be, depends upon, like, shows detail. So if the shows detail is true, then it's going to be 0. Otherwise, it's going to be 20 points. Bottom trailing also will depend on shows detail, and it's going to be basically same, 0 or 20 points. And then we have top trailing, which is going to be 20 points. Let's go ahead and once again select all this, press Command M to format it better. Okay, so now we are ready for the detail view. So we're going to create another struct called custom transition detail view. Once again, this will conform to the view protocol. Now this view will expect a devtechie course to be passed in. Show details to be passed in. And then we're going to define our body property. So if the show details is true, then we're going to display an H stack. Inside the H stack, we're going to have a text view, which is going to basically display the devtechie.course or category with a spacer in between, and then another text view with devtechie course dot lessons, and we're going to type word lessons like that. Okay, let's go ahead and set the font for this guy as subheadline. Let's give it a padding. Background we're going to give it as indigo. Let's set the opacity of 0.7, and let's also set the gradient. We're going to once again use the uneven rounded. So we can take this whole section where we actually drawn the uneven rounded rectangle, and we're going to create that. Okay, now one thing that we're going to change in this is the top leading is also going to appear based on the shows detail. So show details, if it is true, then 0, otherwise 20. We're not gonna base this off of 20 points. Let's go ahead and create a space here. These two are always going to be 20 points, but the trailing is going to depend upon the show detail value. Okay, Now, let's use all these to build our card. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to go and create a new view, struct custom transition card. And once again, this is going to be another view. It is going to have a state property, shows detail or show details. We're going to set this to true. We're going to expect a var course to be passed in from of type devtechie course. And for the body, we're going to have a simple vstack. Inside that, we're going to have group. Inside the group, we're going to show our custom transition title. And we're going to pass in the course that has been passed in to us. And then we're going to basically, for the show detail, we're going to simply pass the value for show detail, whatever it is, and also the back color as indigo. Let's go ahead and apply a transition to this, and we're going to apply the custom transition. For the phase angle, we're going to give the values minus 90 or negative 90 degrees to positive 90 degrees. Now, if the shows detail is true, then we also want to show the detail view. So custom transition detail view. We want to show that, and we want to make sure that we pass in the course detail here as well. So we're going to say course, and for the show detail, we're simply going to pass the value for show detail. Now, this one is also going to have the same transition, and we're going to basically trigger this transition upon tapping on this group. So on tap gesture with animation, and we're going to define the type of animation as snappy. Now for the code, we're going to simply have our show detail, and we're going to toggle that. Okay, so last thing what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our vstack has a frame height of 250 points. So the card is basically 250 points. Now we are ready to render all of this inside our card, and that is a very simple code. So we're going to create a struct custom transition example. We're going to call this as, we're going to create this as a view, and we're going to create a body property. Inside the body property, we are going to have a navigation stack. This navigation stack is going to host a list with all the devtechie courses inside. Now, since the course already conforms to the identifiable protocol, we don't need to worry about giving an ID for this list, and then we can simply call our custom transition card, supplying the course value, the course that's currently being iterated upon. Now we're going to set the list style as plain, not item tint, but list style as tint. List style as plain, and we're going to set the title as devtechie courses. All right, last but not the least, we're going to go ahead and make sure that we call the custom transition example in the preview. Okay, so we have this view that we have created. Let's go ahead and try to change the color theme and see if our view actually corresponds to the color theme, and we have like basically a better looking app here. So it's good, like we can actually just set this as dark mode, so color scheme, and we can say preferred color scheme is dark. All right, okay, so now let's go ahead and tap on our view and notice that we have this custom transition, which is actually hiding and displaying the detail for the SwiftUI, for the course detail. All right, and you can scroll. One thing you're gonna notice is we have these nicely jointed corners that are not rounded, but as soon as the detail is hidden, these corners are out and rounded. So that's another subtle animation that you're playing with this transition. Okay, all right, so with that we have reached the end of this video where we actually explored the custom transition and newly introduced custom transition with the phase control in SwiftUI. Hope you found this video useful. Once again, do try out devtechie.com for more learning resources, and I will see you guys in another video. Thank you.